Can I hear you? That's the question.
Can you?
I can. Yay.
Hey.
Long time no see. It's great to see you.
I know it's good to see you too. It's been too long.
Has it been like pre-COVID at least, huh?
We recorded a couple Zoom ones of these.
I think it was
But
pre-COVID.
yeah,
What
in
was it during COVID? I mean, like it's time has lost all sense of scale, and it's like COVID is like the 9/11. You know what I mean? Where
yeah.
it's just like it was either before or after
I
everything.
think the last time we saw each other in person, I want to say it was like March of last year.
Yeah, I guess it was. Now that you
We
mention
were
it.
gonna go explore places and then couldn't because it was way too hot, and then people were way too sick, and then it.
And then there was just a series of of circumstances following that. So
Oh
uh,
goodness.
I still hope to go to particularly what's the Shutter Island place? Medfield State?
Medfield.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
place in particular. In
We'll
Holy Land,
definitely go
USA.
there. We'll go there. We'll go to God, what was it called? Um, the place you want to go to really bad.
The first place was Holy Land, USA.
I
It
kept wanting
just
to call it like God City, and I was like, I know that's not it.
it just has a hell of a story to it. And I
I
don't know how much of it is still there, but I guess we have to see. It's a little bit, was it in Connecticut or something?
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I'm excited to just I don't know go on some trips. It'll be fun.
Yeah,
Find some haunted stuff. Get scared. It'll be great.
exactly. By
Film
the
it.
way, maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I was interested in staying in the Lizzie Borden house in Fall River.
Yeah.
It was around Halloween, and I looked it up, and I don't know what I expected, but it was booked out for not only October and November, but pretty much pretty much through the end of the year. I was like, people are that, I don't know what that says about the times or how cool the Lizzie Borden house is, but that is a lot of attention for a house where some people were killed with an axe or whatever happened.
I mean, I've driven by it, and I know actually it's on the market right now for like $2 million. So if you've
It
got that
is.
laying around, it could be yours.
I wonder, I mean, you couldn't buy that. Would Fall River get mad at you? It was probably on the historic houses list. If imagine if somebody just bought
Probably
it and knocked it down and built like a paintball range or something. I don't know what
that
you
would be
put there.
like, or like now axe throwing is like the new
That would
thing.
be actually, yeah,
That would be ironic.
suburban axes.
Okay, so we need to raise $2 million, and then
And then start an axe throwing place in Fall River, which is going to get, well, you know what? It
call it
seems in
40
poor
wax.
taste. It seems in poor taste at the Lizzie Borden house location, but you'd probably get all the people who previously would have stayed in the Lizzie Borden house to show up and do haunted axes.
Yeah, I mean, it would be in poor taste for sure. Um, Hell in a handbasket. I'm ready. Pretty sure that's happening anyway.
And when has poor taste ever stopped anyone from doing anything?
If you look at the state of the country today, never.
Apparently never. Yeah, true. So have you found over the last, geez, what is it? Things officially ramped up last March, right? So we're at like nine
Yeah,
months now.
yeah.
Have you found that you've had time to think and introspect over the last 9 months, or has it been primarily um, distraction and busyness?
It's been a little bit of both because I finished my undergrad finally and graduated. And we didn't get to have a graduation. So that was it was bittersweet for me because I was like, I finally did it
Mhm.
and can't celebrate it. Um, and I found a new affinity for yard work because it was like the only thing to do.
You get it too.
I,
Yeah.
I get oh it, I get it. um,
If I
you
had
know,
to do it all the time, I think it would be lost very quickly, but there's great catharsis in yard work.
yeah,
I get
there's
it.
something that just like you feel good at the end of it, and during that time, I had a lot of time to just kind of think and really kind of think about the future and what what I want to do, and the things I would like to accomplish, the goals that I had when I was younger, and how they translate to now.
Mhm.
You know, I definitely got lost for a bit just thinking about all of it, but it's also given me a lot of time to kind of look at, honestly, how fortunate I've been to be able to know that I'm gonna be all right through this, financially and
Mhm.
stuff. I've been lucky enough to have a job, and an assistantship for grad school. So it's definitely given me some time to kind of step back and, come up with different ways that I can help, essentially. And unfortunately, there isn't a ton that I can do. Like, I can't throw a check at the problem,
Mhm.
but that doesn't really do a whole lot. But there's a million ways to kind of get involved and things like that. So it's, shelters, battered women's shelters, especially. Just finding different ways to be there for people, like yard work for elderly neighbors and stuff that just can't get out and get it done, things like that, which, isn't earth shattering or life changing, but it's something to do, and it's something to kind of give yourself the ability to, I guess, acknowledge your luck and maybe your privilege and just keep going.
It's two-way, isn't it? Where you're not only doing that thing for somebody else and probably making a pretty actually big difference in their life, but you're also getting the sense of serenity out of it yourself. I mean, I think that one of the reasons that people don't pick something up to begin with is because they feel like it's not profound what they're doing. But you find that when you do something, you actually get a profound effect from it, whether it's in a grand cosmic sense, profound or not. You know what I mean? It's like I think that right now we maybe people are thinking about this during COVID, but our generation in particular, it's like we have the tyranny of variety, right?
Yeah.
Where in the past there were just very limited options. Now, obviously, it changes depending on what your individual, circumstances are. But it seems like there are infinitely many ways that you could potentially do something, and because of that, it makes it very difficult to choose any one thing. And that exists everywhere now. It's just like there's so theoretically many things that you could do that it's just like, okay, maybe I'll just not choose anything.
Yeah, I mean, and I think for once in my life, I have, I'm patting myself on the back here. I've remained very positive
Mhm.
through this whole thing. Um, Negative, but positive. See, because that's a good thing.
Yeah,
I'll let myself
yeah,
go. Anyway, um,
I get it.
I still have such a squeaky chair, and I was listening to an old episode that we did, and I could hear my chair, and I was just like,
Oh, that's just a self-conscious thing where
yeah,
probably nobody, maybe somebody noticed, but in general,
yeah,
it's like hearing a squeak in your voice. I was
yeah.
just assuming you were kicking whatever animal was under the table, so
Well, I mean,
thanks for clarifying.
I just talked to a space heater for the sake of that joke, but
Okay.
no, I was going to say some. Oh yeah, so I've stayed kind of positive because everybody, for the most part around me, kind of went into this deep. This is never going to get better. This is, insurmountable. And looking at politics and stuff, you kind of could agree, but I just kept saying it's going to get better because it has to.
Mhm.
And incrementally every day, even if it doesn't seem like anything on a grand scale, something gets better because somebody recovers or somebody makes a positive step, and all these little things add up to something bigger to the point where we will eventually go back to normal.
Yeah. And
So,
there are gonna be false summits along the way if for those hikers out there, when if you've ever done Washington, for example, or some
I
yeah, it's like you get over the ridge line and there's another ridge line, and then you get over that ridge line, there's another one. So there's gonna be false uh or it's not going to be linear, the road out of this, but
Not at all.
nonetheless it's going to we're going to get there.
It's definitely, and this has been said ad infinitum, but it's definitely shown the best and worst in people.
Oh
Um,
hell yeah.
I mean, this past holiday season, I was very, very lucky to go back to working at Best Buy in the Geek Squad. Um,
Good rep.
it wasn't even planned, but like this is so comfy. Um, but doing small parcel delivery, which I ended up loving. So maybe like if a PhD doesn't work out, I can still get it and have like Sarah's PH delivery service.
Now's a good time to like small parcel delivery, let me tell you,
Yeah,
because
no,
that is the economy.
but in delivery, I saw such a cross section of people and a lot of the same people getting delivery after delivery after delivery. And I kind of thought to myself, like, maybe we just order everything at once because you
Yeah,
live out in the middle of nowhere. but
I know.
but
I've thought the same thing myself. Yeah, if we could, there should basically be with all these companies, particularly Amazon, there should be this hold where when somebody orders something, it just waits like 6 days to initiate delivery because
yeah,
you're probably going to order something else.
yeah, it begets itself. But I would meet people that had instructions like on their door where to leave it, what to do.
Mhm.
Don't like if don't even breathe while you're doing it. Obviously, I was wearing a mask
Yeah,
the entire time. And then there was other houses where there's like a huge hit a lamp. There's a huge tub of like individually wrapped snacks, like little bags of Cheetos and chips, Gatorades, waters, everything for delivery people.
that
And
is so
I
cool.
thank you. And I ran into that a lot. And I was just kind of floored because I was like, this is so nice and this is so kind. And there's, like them refilling waters and stuff, take what you want, just, enjoy, happy holidays, thank you for what you did. And it was so sweet.
That
And
really is.
I also got to meet a lot of dogs, which was great.
Well, do they treat delivery people more kindly than mail people?
I really only had like one bad experience with a dog that just did not want me near its house. I wasn't even delivering to that house. It was just nearby and not happy about my presence. But other dogs, like, they want to play. There was one dog who had the command hug, and I got a huge hug from a gigantic dog.
Wow, that I don't think I've ever heard somebody with a dog that has a hug command. That's
I
pretty
hadn't
impressive.
either, and I'm not gonna lie, I was a little scared. I was like, this dog is significantly larger than I am, but very sweet. So it worked out.
Way to be caught off guard by, not you in particular, but I think anybody would be very caught off guard by a dog commanded to hug. It'd probably have like it'd be sort of awkward if you just instinctively sort of just like punch the dog as it leaps up at you. I
Yeah,
think a lot of people would have just an instinct to defend themselves.
just be like, oh,
Yeah.
but no, the owner was like up on the porch and the dog came down and they were like, oh, he's friendly. And I was like, that's fine. I love dogs. Um, and the owner goes, go like this. So I did. And then there was a very large dog giving me a hug. And they were like, that's how he knows to hug. And I was like, little heads up would have
Yeah,
been
I know.
top notch.
Don't just tell people to do that. So did you revert to the greedy trick or treater with this bin of
I did
goods?
not.
That's good.
It was tempting. There were some places that like there was Rice Krispies treats, like
Mhm.
there was some good stuff, but I would end up seeing a lot of the same Amazon drivers in the same area. So like, I think we were from what I saw, we were all pretty good about it. Just like we're all kind of doing this, and these people are spending their money to make sure that we have while we're on the road, which is nice.
It really is impressive that there's such thoughtfulness that it's also kind of sad that it seems so maybe there's more of that going on in other times as well. We just don't notice it as much, but there's something sort of sad that we seem so impressed by. It is impressive and it is something to commend, but at the same time, you know what I mean? It's just sort of
Oh,
we're
totally.
so taken aback by it.
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't been a delivery person
Mhm.
before. This was just an opportunity that very thankfully came to me. Um, and also I asked nonstop, can I do this job? Can I do this job? Can I
Mhm.
do this job? I need a job. Can I do this job? So I mean, I think it's a more frequent thing than just what I've experienced, but just the kindness that I saw, and I mean the less than kindness, but I saw more kindness than not when I was out there.
Sure.
Um, and that was great. That was one of those things that just kind of it helps, through a time where everything is so uncertain and people are not in the best of spirits, that they take the time to do something that small for however many people are there to deliver throughout the day. And there was one place that had a sign that was like, even if you're not delivering to us, feel free. And it was really sweet. And if
That isn't that's next level.
that it is, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, I don't really order that much offline, but if I did, I would do that. So now when I see like the Amazon guys coming or something, like I got a case of water, I got some snacks and stuff. I'm like, I feel you guys. You
That's
work 10
good.
times harder than I did, but I feel you.
It's like having worked in a restaurant where you see waiters and waitresses and kitchen staff differently after that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Because I've worked in kitchens and yeah, I've worked, name a job, I've probably had it. But, I, you can tell a lot about someone in the way that they treat uh, people that I guess are in the service industry or.
Sure. And also on top of that, I've heard this or seen this on, you know how everybody seems to have those quote tiles on social media now?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if I've seen it on one of those, but you can tell a lot about someone from the way that they treat people that give them nothing or something like that. You know,
Yeah.
the way that they treat people who maybe they're not dependent on. I don't remember the exact phraseology, but essentially it's another version of how you behave when nobody's watching, you know?
Yeah.
So you see a lot of that now, which is good. And the little gestures really do add up. And I'm just hoping that we can maintain that or just maintain awareness of it outside of moments of national/international tragedy, you know? Because it happened after 9/11. It happened, I'm sure, after, you know, Pearl Harbor, after any
Yeah.
number of tragedies. So
It gives you the
maintain it.
opportunity to either be your absolute best or be your worst or be right. You can be in the middle and that's okay. But
Mhm.
you inevitably, I think, kind of either pretty quickly pick whether you're going to go to the light or to the dark.
Yeah.
You're either going to see the light and see the positive, or just everything sucks. And I get that for some people, that it's very easy to fall down that black hole. And I mean, I've had moments where it's like, it's not fair. I graduated and I don't get to celebrate. It's not fair.
Mhm.
Bad things happen. It's not fair. But it's so cliche, but it's you get knocked down, but it's about how you get back up.
Mhm. I
And
You learn the wisdom to the cliches when
yeah,
you have a lot of time to think.
yeah. The older I get, the more I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's what they meant. And it makes sense, which is even more annoying. It's just like, I used to go, ugh, at it, but
Well, it's frustrating when people use them as platitudes, you know, when people just
mhm.
spout off cliches because and you think about they're really common, but essentially the modern motivational poster, which is like the thing that you get at Home Goods or Pier 1 Import that is like a you know, you're doing great or whatever, and it's like
Yeah,
a block of driftwood.
yeah, or like the skydivers, teamwork or whatever,
Yeah,
and,
exactly. Exactly.
or fall down 7 times, stand up 8. It's like, well, no shit,
Yeah.
Sherlock.
Yeah.
Or just fall down once, admit you can't do what you're doing, find a different way to do it, get up, and then do it the different way.
But see, that doesn't fit on a piece of driftwood, Sarah. It doesn't fit on a doormat or
I'll let myself out again.
um so you must be familiar with the term survivor guilt based on your studies and based on
Yes. Yeah,
just hearing
definitely.
it. So I think that's pretty big right now where you were saying before you're feeling pretty fortunate after reflection, and I think a lot of people, if they have had a an okay year or a better than average year or a
Yeah.
great year, a lot of those people are sort of like, "Yeah, I think I'm going to keep that to myself," because in the context of suffering and uncertainty, it comes across as a bit tone deaf to be celebratory. So I think that that's definitely just like if you are in the military and you survive some attack, your battalion or whatever is killed and you survive. It's like, why me? Why meism? There's
Yeah.
a lot of people I think with that right now too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've known that from a young age because of my grandparents,
Mhm.
coming through the Holocaust and everything. I know that though they never really talked about it, it was there. And as I got older, the things I remember, I was like, oh, okay, that's that. But
And both of them survived, right?
yeah, both my grandmother and my grandfather, and I have one um like great aunt. I don't know exactly what she is, maybe she's an aunt of sorts.
Mhm.
And in the Jewish faith, we call the eldest matriarch the Tanta. So
I'm
she's the Tanta.
realizing I'm listening to you, and then I'm also realizing that was a really dumb question to ask whether both of your grandparents survived the Holocaust, because I'm pretty sure they would have had to have survived for you to even exist based on the time frame of of how long
True,
ago that was.
true. But there were instances where it very rare, but like at in the DP camps and in rehabilitation situations, a woman could get pregnant and then the
Oh,
husband
okay.
pass away. Um, but like the rest of my family, pretty much annihilated. I
Mhm.
had uncles that passed before I was born that survived and stuff. So like I've known what it is, and I think yeah, especially now, I know people that have had COVID, and thankfully so far so good. And it's been different for everybody, and I think it just the state the world is now, whether it's about COVID or racial injustice everywhere, privilege, lack of privilege, just the absolute shit that's out there. Um, I think it's just super important to really kind of know what you have, recognize what you have, and be okay with what you don't. Be okay with your struggle, whatever it might be, but still attempt to be the best version of yourself, which is easy for me to say and very tough in practicality,
Mhm.
but it's something that with all the time I've had to reflect as I walked around my yard about 9,000 times doing random shit to make it look slightly different. That's something that I've thought about a lot.
And it's another thing that sounds like a cliche that we were talking about before. It sounds like it came right off the wall of a CrossFit gym, but
Yeah,
it's true. Be the best version of yourself.
pain is weakness, leaving the body.
Flip that tire however many
Yeah,
times.
just
Be the best version of yourself.
be the best version of you.
So I don't know if you've thought about what a good metaphor for this whole experience is, but the metaphor that I've come up with is, I'm sure at some point you heard somebody say, we're all in the same boat.
Hmm.
And I agree, we are all on the same boat, but it's kind of like the Titanic, and we might all be on the same boat, but we're not all on the same deck. So
Yeah,
the
that's a good one.
the boat hit the iceberg, and the people on the top floor, like their champagne glass fell over onto the ground, and they're like, well, what was that? And then the people on the bottom, like water is gushing into their room. So
Yeah, Leo
you got to factor
DiCaprio's
that
down
in.
there and he's fucked. And then Kate Winslet's like, all right, well, could be worse. And the band's still playing as we're
Yeah,
going down. I still haven't seen the movie all the way through. I've seen bits and pieces of it to like put it all together, but I've never watched it start to finish.
I hear you. It's like I remember it was a two-part movie. I don't even know why that was necessary. They couldn't fit it on one
I,
tape or one
we
disc.
have the technology,
Yeah, yeah.
um, but and don't get me started about the fucking door. There was enough room for both of them.
Oh yeah, they apparently that's James Cameron's greatest regret is that he didn't make the door smaller, because people will still come up with to him and say that. Why didn't
I mean, like I saw something about like like physics classes and at like MIT have, studied how many different ways they could have shared the door and taken to the account, like, the door handle and everything. And it's just like, all right,
A great use of our brightest minds.
there's
And
bigger fish to fry out there, guys.
yeah.
But I don't know. I think like a good metaphor for now really would just be, you know, I mean, it's gonna sound like something that belongs on a piece of driftwood or whatever, but like just like be gracious more than anything else. Just be gracious to the people around you and to your just in general. Don't limit yourself to who you're nice to or to who you give time to, because you don't know what they're going through. You don't know who they've lost or who they've or everybody's got their own struggles. And if you went into the pandemic with shit going on, chances are it ramped up and amplified. So don't discredit yourself, don't discredit others. Just because someone's mean to you doesn't mean that it's something maybe inherently that you did. You don't know everybody's story, all that trite stuff that everybody says, but it's true.
Let it
And
stop with you.
yeah, be the change you want to see. Honestly, if you're looking at the world and going, well, I think I'm doing this okay, I think I'm handling this all right, then if you think you are, try to spread that around instead of mob mentality, if you will, and making it worse.
I think a hell of a lot of people have picked up on that, and the free time that a lot of people find themselves with. I don't know what the numbers are going to be with the amount of people who have used their free time or maybe feel like they've used their free time effectively or productively. I'm not talking about like, I think this is all a big beta test basically of how we use leisure time. You know what I mean? Like, can we productively use leisure time? And I'm not saying it's leisure in the strictest sense of the word, because it's like stress leisure,
Yeah, it's
but
like forced leisure.
it's basically forced leisure. But you know, it, it's like what I think that I was big into Andrew Yang earlier, like last year, and
On
him
that.
talking about job automation and job displacement and stuff like that. And that's another thing where it's like, people are going to have, if there's something like a universal basic income, people are going to have more leisure time, right? And like, how can you productively use leisure in a way that gives you meaning and purpose and whatnot? And I think that this, to me, has been sort of, I realized, like a big test for how people can shift into meaningful use of leisure time.
No,
So it's
I
not
completely
total idleness and not total flicking through infinite scrolls all the time and just wasting all time on social media.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And at the beginning of all this, like the screen time on my phone that measures how long I'm on my screen, rude, because I was just bored.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a lot that a lot of people have gotten to do, a lot that people have gotten figured out about themselves. And I think that it's definitely been more of a curse than a blessing. But if you take some of that forced leisure and look at it and go, okay, well, I can do this. And then you also kind of look at, it's been almost a year.
Sure.
Since everything popped off. And it might not feel like it, but we've come pretty far. There's a vaccine. There's 2 vaccines, sorry. We've figured out a way to be out in public. Natural selection has kind of started. But we've we've done a lot to improvise and to figure out what do we do now. We go to school on Zoom. We do podcasts on Zoom.
Mhm.
We spend our time finding the things that we can do, and eventually we get through it.
We need that sense of momentum because the next big thing up on the docket is figuring out a way to like each other again.
Yeah, that's the other thing that has been so key and so important is staying in communication with each other.
Mhm.
Like when we did the first podcast together in Somerville, um, it was like we hadn't seen each other in forever, and it was great catching up. And we were like, "Oh, okay, we'll do this again." And boom, everything shut down,
Mhm.
and we couldn't. And now we haven't seen each other in like almost a year, but we've stayed connected. I'm on FaceTime with my little nephew and my best friend constantly. He's going to be 4 in April. He's a little mean right now, but I still love him to death.
He's a
A
little mean. Yeah.
little bit, like he's learning who he is, and his thing is he'll be like, listen to my words, and it's like I just got put in my place by a 3-year-old, and I feel very small right now.
Yeah, kids will tell you exactly what they think.
Oh yeah, I took my dogs for a walk on a street that I usually don't go on today, and I had a puffy vest and a sweatshirt, and I was just walking the dogs, minding my own business. And this little kid says from her yard, she goes, "You look like a double chin soccer mom, but you're missing the dunks cup." And I was like,
Missing a what?
a dunks cup, and I was just like,
Wow.
I was like, what do you say to that? And her mom came outside and was like, "Oh my," and, apologized to me, and she was like, "You don't have a double chin," and I was like, I
That's
want
when you
to.
look around, when a kid says something like that's when you look around and then you unleash some verbal tirade. You just see if there's another adult around.
Yeah, like I saw her mom, and I heard her, and she like was just like she was very adamant about how she felt, and I was standing there very much like, what, how do you respond to that with like, you don't, you kind of go,
You just have to have good self-control. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
I'm just
it,
gonna drink my energy drink and just keep on chugging.
it makes me think of there was, have you ever heard of the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck? Or
Yes, I have.
there's a sequel book, Everything is Fucked, A Story of Hope. I read the second one. They're entertaining, but the author Mark Manson, he talks about how there's child mentality, adolescent mentality, and adult mentality. Everybody's supposed to graduate up to adult mentality, but kids, they want what they want and they want it now. So they'll throw a tantrum to get it. They don't care. They'll be very blunt, like in
Yeah,
that circumstance. Um,
that one just was
and
like,
yeah, I know. Yeah, dagger kid, dagger. Yeah,
I was I literally was doing this for like the rest of the time I was. The mom was like, "You
yeah,
don't have a double chin," and I was just like, "Are you sure?"
yeah. Kids are just mean, a lot of the time, unfortunately, which is why everybody has nightmare
I
most
mean,
people have nightmare memories of middle school.
driving along, delivering stuff, little kids, like 7-year-olds especially, will just as you go by, and it's like, "What do I do to you? I don't
You
even know
realize,
you."
you realize, child, that you are vulnerable to a delivery truck.
Yeah, like I may be driving a small van, but I'm driving and you are not.
You just glare at them and do one of these and like, I will wreck you, kid. I will wreck you. I will run you over with this truck. And then the mom's like, what did you just say to my kid? You're like, oh, nothing, nothing.
If there wasn't the logos on everything,
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
but I drove those roads for quite a while. I remember
Yeah.
ish.
Exactly. And you know how to get back, and you know how to enact vigilante justice when
Yes,
needed.
not
um,
any sort of branded clothing. So,
exactly. So the second level after kid was adolescent, and it's like when people learn to be transactional, like they
yeah,
play people off each other. They'll be nice to their parents so that they can get allowance or something out of them. Relationships will be like transactional for like sex or resources, or like it's like a very just kind of like limited view of people, almost like a sociopathic view of
Yeah,
people. And then
frontal
eventually,
lobes really need to catch up.
what'd you say?
Their frontal lobes need to
Oh,
catch.
exactly. And that's where adult comes in eventually, where it's like you basically do things out of principle because they're the right thing to do rather than, you know, I'm going to get recognition for this or whatnot.
Yeah,
And you find that probably a disconcerting amount of people as um as physical adults are stuck at the intellectual level of a child, and then a very large chunk is stuck in adolescence, and probably very few people actually make it to uh mental maturity.
yeah. I mean, I think our generation, or from what I've seen, is very in the transactional area.
Yes. Yeah.
And in some instances, I can see it. Like I'll buy coffee, you, I don't know, buy the next round. I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
But like, legitimate transactions. But for the sake of like anything else, it shouldn't be conditional.
Mhm.
Most things, especially like things that come from the goodness of your heart, shouldn't be conditional. It shouldn't be, I'll do this for you because you're gonna have to do something for me,
Yeah.
even though we're grown ass adults and a favor is a favor.
Yeah.
You know?
What do I get out of you? It's like a quid pro quo, you know?
Yeah. And that's unfortunate because you end up sort of just being like, I don't want to deal with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of you begin to separate yourself. That's another thing that I learned throughout this whole quarantine lockdown COVID nightmare is who the people that are really in your corner, who they are.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the rest will fall away quick, which is jarring in the short term, but in the long term, it's actually a really good thing. It forces
Yeah,
you to reestablish what's real.
a fair number of friendships kind of just petered out, and like not in an argument or anything like that. They just didn't sustain because we weren't around each other.
Mhm.
And it was weird because it was some of them were work friends, some of them were just people like I kind of knew from school, and we'd see each other, but like nothing.
Yeah.
And then there are the people that I've kept in contact with and choose to keep in contact with me as well. That's the other thing. If COVID's taught us all anything, is there's no control over anything. Um, and you're
Or
the only.
there's there's less control than we want to have. You know, it's like there a lot of it is an illusion of
Yeah,
control. So you have to have a general attitude of like kind of like rolling with the punches or
yeah,
going with the flow, whatever you want to call it, but also you have like conditional control. But this
yeah,
whole notion of like I'm in total control, and yeah, this just fried most people's, I think, unless they have like the most intense dissonance in the world. Most people sense that they have control over over life.
yeah. I know for me, like one thing I really learned, and I knew it, but it went into practice was the only thing I can really control is how I react to situations.
Hell yeah. Yep.
And it's been like, hey, you don't want to be my friend anymore because I mean, again, how adolescent does that sound? But you don't want to be my friend anymore because I don't, or I'm tired of, you know, all it is this individual just complaining
Mhm.
that aren't fair. But you're not making any active attempts to change the things that you perceive as unfair. Then, if I say that that's not something I want to deal with, and you choose to go, well, then I don't want to talk to you. That's your prerogative, and I will deal with that as I have to. That's the control that I have, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's like there was a quote that I heard once again, probably off one of those tiles that was like, those who make you angry control you effectively. I'm once again
Yeah,
paraphrasing, but
I mean, there's definite truth to that. When you let go of, anger or pain or just general discontent,
Mhm.
you begin that process of letting go of that relationship that you had.
Sure. You make peace with it yourself on your own terms, right?
Yeah, and I think that's more important than, in some cases, not all cases, but in some cases, it's more important to make peace with yourself and the situation than the person that's exiting your life.
This is pretty relevant to prior conversations that we've had about narcissism in particular, where it's like if you let that person control you
Yeah,
through your emotional response to them, then you're sort of feeding into the whole
you're
loop.
yeah, you're giving them exactly what they want. I think I sent you something the other day, and this plays into remaining friends with people even back. Because you're the bestest texter in the whole world.
Yeah, I know. That's where it peters off for me is like I'm very much a face-to-face person.
Yeah,
I mean like if somebody says straight up like I need you for this or like I need to talk, like I'll always be there. But like just the general day-to-day kind of random thought text messaging, um I've I, I don't I struggle with it because like I've learned first of all that in investing in like text strips away all of the facial cues, all of
like,
the body language, all of everything. So never try to do anything like meaningful through text if that makes sense. Like you can schedule something through text and that makes sense. But
and I'm giving you shit too, but
yeah,
um,
I weigh I, I tell people this because I'm like across the board. You ask anyone in my life, whether it's my parents, my sister, relatives, friends, like everybody has the same problem with me via text. And it's just that like I resent text messaging. I don't resent the people behind the text messages.
yeah, no,
If that
I'm
makes
just
sense.
giving you a hard
Yeah.
time because another thing is like I've discovered I'm either good about responding or horrible.
Mhm.
And but that aside, I sent you a text. Um, yeah, I believe I sent you a screenshot that I found that was very fitting. It was something along the lines of never get into an argument with a narcissist because they will find a way to prove that, yeah,
I
you
saw it.
did
Yep.
something that never happened. Um,
Mhm.
and that was very fitting for a lot of things.
Didn't you send me another one? Maybe this was somebody else, but I feel like it had to be you because it's not like I've had narcissist conversations with many people, but um
Why take our thing?
exactly, it's our domain. So there was a meme or maybe it was a tweet where it was like an accusation by a narcissist is a confession. I was like, damn, that's pretty
Yep, I
profound.
just found it. I just popped back there. Our tech. There it is, right there.
Yep.
Right there. I don't know who needs to hear this, but accusations from a narcissist are confessions. And thank you to Witty Idiot on Twitter.
Yeah, that is pretty damn accurate
Yeah,
from my
that
experiences.
was also we were talking about going to the abandoned mining town, Cerro Gordo, way out west.
Exactly. You could see how the two topics relate to each other perfectly.
Pretty sure they were like days apart, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But anyway, with conversations, they hop around so frequently. Anyway, that's what I've learned about the conversations that I generally engage in
yeah.
is like the people that I talk to, you or other friends, like they generally like get the way that I think. But if I'm having a conversation with like you or somebody else in front of a third party, they're like, "What the hell is happening right now? This is very unusual because it just
Oh yeah.
hops around from."
If someone were to pick up either our phones and read the conversation between us, they'd be like, "There's something fucking wrong with
Oh,
them."
hell yeah. Yeah, and if
Yeah,
somebody saw
'cause
my search history, which is like probably yours too, but it's like, uh, it's like atrocities from the last
true
century.
crime stuff that I've
Yeah.
listened to and want to know more about.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me this if this doesn't encapsulate it perfectly well. So, about a month ago, I was visiting some friends, and they had one of those party games on cards, almost like a would you rather type thing, or like a Cards Against Humanity. And you just had to I think you had to put down a challenge and guess whether the people in the room could actually do it based on what you know about them as friends. And so one of them was whether I could name 3 Beyonce songs. And I think one friend said, "Okay, yeah, I think maybe they both voted like, oh yeah, he's got this. You know, he gets pop culture." I couldn't name one. Like I honestly, I sang some lyrics to one of them, and then I guessed based on the lyrics what the name of the song was.
Inbox says
It
it was
I
single
think it was like
ladies.
Single Ladies, and that's not what it was called, you know? And so, like, I couldn't even get one. Um, and and, uh, and I guess, like, Surfboard or To the Left or something like that, I don't know. I could get
Is
one.
surfboard?
Couple questions later, the challenge was, can he name 3 serial killers? I named, like, 10 serial killers.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
what does that say about me? I couldn't name 1 Beyoncé song, but off the top of my head, I could name, like, 10 serial killers.
yeah. I'm. Oh man, if like let's say you and I were on a team for that game,
Uh-huh.
they'd be like, "All right, so we call the guys with the straight jackets, right? And then we just get them."
Yeah.
Because I think if you put the two of us on a team for something like that, it would it would be illuminating for everyone in the room.
Yeah, it would be concerning.
Yeah, it would be like so, so Killer Kids. Have you watched that show? Now that is like for real. That's a mind fuck though. If you ever get a
Is
chance to
that a
watch,
for real thing?
that's
Killer
a for
Kids?
real thing.
Okay.
And I remember because when I found it, I was watching it, and my mom walked into the room and she goes, "What?" And just walked out. And I found that show a long time ago.
That's the
It's
kind of
scary.
shit that I just yeah, it's like the documentaries that I watch or whatever. It's
Yeah,
it's all stuff that I find interesting, and that the average person would be like, I feel like it was a bit heavy.
yeah. Some of the books that I recently finished, I had been asking for. Santa was nice to me this year and got me a book that I asked for. I was looking for A Mother's Reckoning,
A
which
what?
was written
A Mother's Reckoning.
by Mother's Reckoning
Okay.
by Sue Klebold, Dylan Klebold's
Oh,
mother.
actually,
Yeah. Um,
that sounds good.
it was an amazing book, and I will let you borrow it.
So for people, aka most people who don't have stashed in their head who Dylan Klebold is,
He is one half of the Columbine massacre uh, duo. Um,
she did a
and
TED talk, right? The mother.
yeah, she did do a TED talk. She's done a fair amount of not publicity or anything like that. I mean, I guess technically publicity, but and minor spoiler alert for the book, she talks a lot about brain health and mental health because when
Yeah.
you break down the two killers, um, Dylan, her son, definitely. I mean, he obviously was guilty and did stuff, but he was operating from what looks to be a very depressive, mentally unwell state.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just shed a lot of insight into it, and so did her TED talk. I mean, um, that, and she did touch on the fact that there are dark corners of the web where it glorifies, you know.
Oh, I think we talked about this. There's like a couple years back there was I don't even know what you call it. It's like a section of the internet that's sort of
Oh, we talked about.
like a shrine or
Yeah,
like a love letter to the Columbine shooters, and there are
yeah,
some girls who were like, "Oh my God, Dylan and Eric, they're so dreamy." And
yeah,
there's a
and
guy from maybe Vice who went and talked to them and was like, "Okay, what is this about exactly?"
yeah, and it's like I don't know if it's shock factor or whatever, but it's gross,
Yeah,
is what it is, and you know, there's all these. There's a lot of glorification of that type of thing, and I mean, gross is the best word I have for it. I have a bachelor's in English, and icky is what I'm
yeah,
thinking.
I know. Yeah,
But
it usually could be worse.
I, I think it's weirdly telling of the generation that's coming up. Now, the generation that's coming up is, I think, multidimensional. There are some people that are legitimately ready to take over and will take over the world in a positive light. And then there are
Mhm.
other people that I'm like, what the hell happened to
Yeah.
you? Um,
Yeah,
so
and there are people who are like that who also have the ambition to want to take over the world in a very negative way.
yeah, so that's who needs the white jackets that give hugs.
Yeah.
Not us. We're just interested in different things.
Mhm.
Hence the fact that we're having a conversation about two mass murderers like it's nothing.
But it's like you really have to be willing to go into those dark, uncomfortable places and explore not only humanity, not only your country, not only other people, but yourself, like the good,
Yeah.
the bad, and the ugly, the darkness. Like if you don't understand the darkness, you'll never bring about the light or like you know,
Yeah, and when
you'll
you
never.
find a kindred spirit in that, it's so good to bounce ideas off of someone else
Mhm.
that isn't just a nameless person online that happens to be in the same Reddit thread as you or something.
Exactly. And you and I both know this because we've talked about various serious things before. The Holocaust, a big one that
Yeah,
we've talked about, and like a lot of people, that's just sort of like a gross topic. People are like, "Ugh," like I don't really want to think about that. It makes me feel bad or whatever. But like if you don't, if you don't go into it and try to learn like what inspired this megalomaniacal man, what inspired all these people to follow this, what circumstances existed, what or what existed in them, do they exist in me, and do they exist in the population that I'm in right now? Could this happen again? Right, like if you don't
could
ask
it happen
questions like
again?
that.
Yes, it could happen
Yeah,
again.
if you don't ask questions like that, then you don't solve anything. It's just an avoidant ostrich head in the sand mentality.
Yeah, and
So,
it's so important to really, it's so important to do not only that personal empathy checklist, but the people that you surround yourself with.
mhm,
Um, and in our conversations about some normal stuff, like, hey, you want to go do this? Sure. Other stuff that's like, all right, so I was reading this thing
mhm,
about twin experiments on the Holocaust. Hear
mhm.
me out. Oh, wait, no, I read it too. And it's just like, all right, cool, they're
Yeah.
fine. um,
When you have somebody that's on that same kind of curiosity at all costs playing field, you
yeah,
don't have to load up your the start of your conversation with like explaining yourself and what's the word when you.
not seeming crazy.
Yeah, it's not seeming crazy, but there's a word for like when you're trying to yeah, basically you're not trying to like tell you don't have to put so much effort into demonstrating to someone that you're
Yeah, it's you don't have
or
to
something.
not just explain yourself, but like you don't need to kind of.
Oh, I was going to say editorializing was
Oh, there you go. I
because
was gonna say
editorializing are like
validating.
these comments within text where, and a lot of people before they say something, they're like, all right, I don't want this to sound weird. I don't want it to come across wrong. I don't want to offend this. I don't want to offend you or these groups or whatever. It's like, okay, just say what you're going to say.
It's like spit it out because if you're gonna preface it with that much stuff, it's probably gonna be like weird.
Yeah.
But when two people can talk about like the Holocaust, white supremacy, Ruby Ridge, Waco,
Mhm.
uh, you know, any of the trips we've talked about taking to places that are like super fucked up, but we want to go see them anyway. Not super fucked up because there's
Mhm.
like some really fucked up places that we aren't going like, but anyway, that have an interesting past, if you
Yes.
will. Um, with all of that, it's really great to have someone on the same wavelength, and to be able to talk about those things. So to anybody listening, that's like, hey, I have thoughts about deeper things that are not the most popular topic, and just when you find that person that shares the same interests, just you know explore the friendship, explore the possibilities because you have the opportunity to fully divulge into something that you're super interested in, and you don't have to explain yourself and hope that they can validate what you're thinking about and what your thought process is to getting to that idea or whatever you want to call it that you got to. They're already there.
Yeah.
And that's important. But
That's that's like the foundation of meaningful, purposeful, deep thought and conversation and relationships that actually matter, rather than all this like surface level nonsense where people feel like if they misspeak in front of somebody that person's going to like cast them out or send them to the wolves or stone them in front of the Coliseum or whatever. It's like
yeah.
have to be willing to be wrong in how you speak. Like that's one of the things that upsets me most about or one of the things that really sent me down this whole road of being curious about all these things that were like taboos is you have to be willing to misspeak or you have to be comfortable with misspeaking and other people allowing you to misspeak, because we're not naturally articulate. We have to explore ideas and dark concepts and all these different things before you end up with something better. Like you can't achieve enlightenment or anything like it without going through rockiness and being wrong or saying
Yeah.
something that's like, oh, okay, that was cringeworthy. Maybe not that, but what
And
about
like
this?
and allowing yourself to be vulnerable too, like with your ideas and stuff, because when people ask, what are you doing for school? I'm like, I want to tell you about, that I'm studying this, this, and this.
Mhm.
And from an outsider's perspective, it's like, okay, sure, that type of thing. But I've raised some eyebrows, unfortunately, but that's what it is. That this is something that I feel that I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be studying this and carrying on my family's legacy.
Mhm.
Um,
And you
and
see on somebody's face sometimes them mentally writing you off, like when you
oh
say
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
like when I was still working in sales, it's finally warm down here. So excuse me while I just
Goodbye, Geek Squad.
never goodbye Geek Squad. Just hello into the AM. I am just a walking advertisement. And I have gotten new tattoos since the last time we talked.
We'll talk about
But we'll get there. But yeah, when people would ask me, they would be like, "Oh, okay," and then I'd be like, "Well, my grandparents were Holocaust survivors," and sometimes that would be what they needed to um, validate. Going, okay, she's not crazy. She's got a reason to be interested in this, and then other people would just be like, "Yeah, I just want to buy a TV and leave."
Mm.
But that's life.
Well, I think you need that to an extent of like, don't you in a way, don't you to some extent relish it? You don't want it to be everyone, but you need people to misjudge you or you need people to underestimate you or to not get what you're doing at all. Like, I feel like that's kind of an important part. Like, I'm not talking about people to hate, but somebody who's just like, I mean, look at every movie or book. There's always some figure that's like, you'll never be able to do it, and like you
Yeah,
sort of need people like that in your life
I
for you to
think
be
I've
like,
said this before to you. I'm not sure, but I love being underestimated.
yeah,
And I look forward to the day where I get to go give a speech about my research or whatever, and I'm gonna walk in pretty much like this, with my tattoos out, in a funky T-shirt, looking like I'm someone that's supposed to be sitting in the audience, and then I'm be like, all right, so I'm Dr. Weisberg, and well, currently pre Dr. Weisberg, but
pre-doctor doesn't have the same ring to it.
it really doesn't. But I'm gonna be that asshole when I finally get my doctorate at like Starbucks. I'll be like, order for Dr. Weisberg, like once or twice, and then my pride will take over. But I love being underestimated. I love when people think that I don't know what I'm talking about or something, because it's not only validation for myself, which is self-serving, but it's
Mhm.
also I think a solid sociological lesson, like legitimately not judging a book by its cover,
Yeah.
because this happened too when I was delivering. I had this woman say, like, very loudly say to her kid, you know, that's why you got to go to school so you don't end up doing a job like that.
Oh my
And
god.
I whipped around and I said, I'm sorry, I'm a grad student and I'm just making a little extra money for the holidays.
Yeah.
Got a 4.0 for the semester too. So see you
Good for
later.
you. That's awesome.
Thank
I
you.
never I don't think in my entire college career achieved a 4.0, so I was always impressed that people would
I
do
I
that.
stared at the grades for a long time. I was like, there's gotta be a mistake in here. There's
Mhm.
gotta be, but um yeah, subtle flex. But yeah, no, I just it's how people perceive you and stuff. And I always I love being underestimated and I love being able to be like,
It kind of allows you to be a silent assassin, so to speak, you know what I mean? Just,
yeah,
like,
a little bit.
move amongst the crowd.
Yeah, I definitely when I find myself people watching, which obviously has been a lot harder, but you know, like when I would be taking the train or whatever, or back when we got to travel and I could be in an airport, my favorite thing was people watching. I'm just kind of wondering like, what's the story there? Or, you know, one time I was about to get on a flight and there was a guy and um for the sake of not uh butchering his religion or whatever it was that whatever kind of garb he was wearing
Yeah.
was Middle Eastern and a turban. I don't know what sect or whatever, and I don't want to uh, discredit him in any way, shape, or form.
Mhm.
But people were actively moving away from him, and he's just this dude. He's just going somewhere like the rest of us are. And I thought, you know, like, all these years later, really? Fear of the
Yeah.
unknown.
It's a nice reminder that, yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's
It's
always
just
there to some extent.
hate is alive and well,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But yeah, I mean it's good to have that moment of I told you so, but it's also really good to not need it and just be confident in the fact that you're proud of yourself for learning or just that you want to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you don't need the constant approval or adoration. It's sort of like the self-validation, right? That's
Yeah,
more internalized. Okay,
yeah,
so let me rewind for a sec. Like I'm trying to I can't do the you know in Ace Ventura. Have you
yeah.
ever seen when Jim
I
Carrey is just like he's like dressed in the
That was
tube?
good though. That was close. I was transported for a minute.
You were transported. Okay, so we were talking about at one point sort of controlling your reaction of not letting people take over and exploit your anger or your emotional response. And I think that right now that is more important than ever, because just as there were people who were addicted to as one side would claim political correctness, there are people who are just trying to like shut down conversation and not listen. There are also people who are very much addicted to trolling, you know what I mean, who are like the opposite end of the spectrum, who are just dicks for the sake of being dicks. and
Yeah.
and like I think that we very much that's at its absolute zenith right now. I think zenith is high point.
Oh yeah.
So basically not letting uh it's just like what people used to say with bullying, and sometimes didn't work, but in general, like if you deprive people of the reaction, then you suck the power away from it, right? So like if people realize to if they either engage, if they either choose to engage in a conversation, or if they're just like, okay, that's not really worth my time with people's trolling, then it loses its power.
Yeah. I mean,
A lot of it,
a
maybe
lot
all of it.
of a lot of people that engage in trolling are just desperately seeking attention, obviously. And when you
Mhm.
don't give it to them, um, thing that the thing that scares me now is because it's played out on such a grand scale. When, the big old Cheeto puff didn't get the attention he wanted, things got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, to the point where now it's, we just made history today with a second impeachment.
Yeah. Yeah,
which was
I'm
kind
not
of
gonna I don't like to speak in absolutes. Like, I don't want to say this policy always works of like, if you ignore something it will go away, because clearly there are many times that that's not a
yeah,
good idea. I think that
yeah,
the judgment of when to do that and when not to do it is really the the critical question.
yeah,
But I guess starting a parallel conversation that is more meaningful, because I think a lot of those people that you were just talking about is saying that they're looking for something, they're looking for uh, a reaction, or they're looking for somebody to just pay attention to them. Look at meism.
yeah,
If you can potentially redirect that person, almost like have we talked about Daryl Davis before?
yeah, we have,
Okay, almost like a Daryl Davis type thing, where this black man who goes and talks with members of the Ku Klux Klan and just like sits down and talks with them. If you can take trolling behavior and try to like say, hey, there's a seat in the conversation for you over there if you want to set the trolling aside for a sec and be a part of the conversation.
yeah,
I'll hear you out. Like, there's opportunities to do things like that. It's just really like, how many people have the patience to be that way, and unfortunately right now it's very few, so I'm hoping people can become that way.
yeah, and you need more inquiring minds, really, and I know they're out there, but there's so many that are just in this rigidity of this is my way of thinking and you're not going to change my mind. um to some extent I think we all have that, like I'm rigid and the Holocaust was a horrific event and you're not going to change my mind.
Mhm.
um but that's kind of a grand scale uh idea, as opposed to you know Republicans versus Democrats or whatever the hot topic of the moment is.
Sure.
But it goes a little bit with everything, and at the end of the day, I always think to myself at the end of the day, what am I grateful for today? And sometimes it's just that somebody heard what I had to say. And I think that if these trolls were given the opportunity to be heard,
Mhm.
it still wouldn't be enough. And that's what's really sad for them, is that even if they had the opportunity to be heard in their entirety, it wouldn't be enough. And my hope is that someday it will be.
Maybe it has to do with building the people who are a little bit more self-aware, building the means or the infrastructure for them to graduate from the childhood mentality to the adolescent and adult mentality, move
Yeah,
towards a principled life outlook rather than being stuck forever in the I'm going to throw a tantrum, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me.
yeah. I mean, I've said it a couple times, like when I've seen just ridiculousness from the reactionary right and whatnot on the news. I've said, like my 3-year-old nephew handles adversity better than some Trumper being told no.
Mhm.
And like, although he handles it pretty well. It's like a 3 or 4 minute block of time that's just deep introspection for him, and then we move on.
Good.
But you know those types of things, like I think you can tell a lot about how a conversation is going to go and how somebody's going to react or act, not even just react, but just act based on how loudly they feel they need to talk. Even if
Gotcha.
just given an open forum and saying, tell me your thoughts and feelings, if they are not hearing impaired or speaking to a large crowd with no microphone, if they need to yell their point at you 99% of the time, that's someone that's not going to be receptive to an open discourse. That's
Sure.
someone that is taking an opportunity and throwing it in the ground. And that's unfortunate.
It
But
is. So it's almost like you figuring out early on in a conversation some sort of like a checklist of somebody's receptivity, like if they're going to shout, the volume of their voice, if they're going to talk over you, because unfortunately a lot of people will have the fast talking approach where it's like if you can just muddy the water with as many topics as possible and move the goalposts and shift left and shift right and like juke the person out. It's not
yeah,
really an honest attempt at conversation. It's just trying to get the person to have to respond to like 30 claims at once and lose the kind of the pathway of the conversation. So this gets back to what I was saying earlier about my aversion to pure text when it
yeah,
comes to conversation and whatnot, is because in general I would say that I hope that a lot of us have learned over the last couple years with social media being in its maybe not the last couple years, but like the last 10 years with social media being in its infancy. Like I hope that we've graduated through different degrees of social media maturity where like early on we're just like, oh, this is a big arena where we can just jump in and throw punches and yell at each other. And like I hope that most of us have kind of or a lot of us, maybe not most of us, a lot of us have realized that you really don't change people's minds by just like jumping in and bombarding them with uh, dictation on
yeah,
or large paragraphs or essays on social media. Like,
yeah,
particularly not when it's in front of an audience. Like, if somebody's acting like a total idiot and they have no idea what they're talking about and they communicate primarily through memes, like commenting on their meme and just being like, hey, you're an idiot, here's why, like that's not really achieving, if you're trying to change the person's mind, it's not
yeah,
really achieving at all what you're trying to do. It's really just kind of your own sense of catharsis of being like, I get to call this person out and call them an
yeah,
idiot. So it's not really solving anything. So either DMing the person or trying to have a conversation in some other forum, preferably voice or face to face.
yeah,
But it's tough because it's like Megan Roper Phelps, the woman who grew up in the Westboro Baptist Church. She said that she changed her mind through a Twitter conversation that she had.
yeah.
It happens, you know. It's not to say that it's the norm, but it does happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's those one-off instances, and I like to keep the idea that I will have a conversation with just about anybody,
Mhm.
um, until you give me a reason not to, like COVID. Um, but I'm the type of person that like people will ask me about my tattoos a lot, and I'll answer questions. And I'll try to have conversations with people that want to have conversations. But when you can't have a face-to-face conversation, like I'll give you a hard time about not responding to texts and stuff, but that's because like I if I really need to talk to someone, like they're getting a FaceTime call from me
Mhm.
because everybody knows it's like common knowledge. Everyone's more likely to pick up a FaceTime call than a regular phone call.
Mhm.
Um, if you're willing to engage with me on a human level, like you were saying, like I'll have a conversation with you. But if you're gonna start fighting with me online over nothing, over an idea that you've already made or your mind's already made up, why am I wasting my breath?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I think people like you and me definitely aren't we're not set in our ways and that we won't listen to other points of view, but there are things that are like what you're saying is fundamentally not okay. And this isn't just a me opinion, this is an everybody opinion.
Yeah. Or it's
you know,
going to lead you down very bad
yeah.
road.
So there's instances like that. And what always gets me is that there's always so much room for change on both sides of the spectrum. And the people that are willing to listen to that change are the quietest, but then have the most to say and never get the chance to. Or not never, but infrequently
Oh,
get
I
the
know what you
chance to.
mean. Yeah.
Because, you're just not willing to out scream someone that is convinced they are right with no discernible proof.
Well, that's where the distortion comes in because, like, whether it's the media or the radical fringes of the left and the right, or it's like all the loudness is what defines the conversation, right? Because you typically think conversation is defined by what is said rather than by what is not said, right? So you think
Yeah.
that you start to think everybody's insane and the world is totally insane and nobody has any sense, when there's like this anti-matter, this anti-conversation of like the silence and the people who are listening and reflecting, who are forming uh you know informed opinions, and it's all kind of invisible, unfortunately, or a lot of it is.
Yeah. I think to to that point, silence sometimes is just so much louder than the biggest argument,
Mhm.
because when, especially in conversations where you're differing in opinions, when you kind of sit back and you're just quiet, whether you completely disagree and you're like swallowing anger, or you're just giving yourself a minute to kind of think through it, the person that is so desperate to make their point and is like very just on, like just chomping at the bit to prove that they're right, they can't be silent. Whereas the person that's listening and just kind of taking it in is like, all right, and that drives me crazy. I've seen it. I've seen people like lose their shit over the fact that, I haven't immediately agreed with you, that I'm just kind of sitting there like,
Yeah, like a boss bitch.
I try, do one of these. Just
Yeah.
try to be that boss ass bitch.
Yeah, a lot of people, it's like a marketing type of viewpoint of the world, where it's like, if I haven't, or like it also an ADD type view of the world, where it's, if I haven't convinced this person in like 30 seconds, then they're not worth my time, or they're unconvincible.
Yeah, it's like, I should like say too, most of my conversations are not me trying to convince somebody of something. It's usually like, how's it going?
Mhm.
If that, like, I, for as extroverted as I can be, most of the time, I'm pretty quiet.
Sure.
Like when I first, especially if I'm by myself, like if I'm with my friends, I'm a little bit louder, but when I'm by myself, I'm usually pretty quiet until someone engages me in a conversation.
Mhm.
I'm not out there looking for an argument unless I'm in like a very bad mood and I'm around people I know, in which case look out and I'm sorry. But um, I don't go looking for those things. Like they're either, if you go looking for someone to either try to persuade in one way or another, you're either a religious zealot and good luck to you, or you're out looking for an argument. And I'm not. The world is a tough enough place that I don't need to go trying to pick fights with people
The
over.
verbal bar fight.
Yeah, it's like, do you believe what I believe? Let me ask you a series of really uncomfortable questions. Like, I get those questions. I get ridiculous questions.
Mhm.
Like, Barn, it's some of the weirdest shit. Like, I can't tell you how many times people will ask me if I'm gay or a man because of my hair.
I mean,
I am
is
neither.
it prefaced by anything, or is it just that's
I have had people say, like, so, or like, come up to me and go, "Are you a lesbian?" And I'll be like, "Nice to meet you too."
kind of impressive, people's
Yeah,
boldness? Like, if they could take that boldness and apply it to other parts of their life, they might be
yeah.
doing themselves some favors, but
I'm like that. That is some chutzpah, as my people say. Um,
misapplied boldness.
yeah, and I'll be like, no. But now that this is good and awkward, I mean, I'm sure I could find one for you if you need me to. If you want to go by ratios, if there's enough people around, I'm sure if you ask around, since you're already asking, um, or I put it on Facebook actually. I was very upset because I on the road, you especially with COVID, you have to find, like places to go to the bathroom that'll let you in
Mhm.
because of COVID. And what I do when I'm on the road, I hydrate. So I gotta pee. So I went to a Walmart and from behind I had this sweatshirt, skinny jeans, and it had snowed, so some boots on. And people in the women's room were so convinced that I was a guy that they went and got a manager who told me I needed to leave because I was making people uncomfortable with my appearance. And I was like, this is fucked up, number one. But you can't take my word at face value either that I promise you I'm not a man. Like that boldness that people have to just like ask those ridiculous questions, those are the type of people that are going out there looking for an argument and or to ruin someone's day.
And these are also often the people that I find call other people snowflakes, which I
Yeah.
find quite entertaining.
Yeah, my favorite are when I get people that are like, "Are you gay?" No. "Are you sure?" Well, in the last millisecond, who knows, really?
I am
Like,
now? No, I'm not.
it's like, well, wait, is it an odd or even number for seconds? Because that's a defining factor. Wait, no. Stuff like that. Like, there's there are literally people that refuse to believe me, and I don't understand it. So I'm like, fine, in your world, I'm whatever. I can't sit there and argue my identity to
Let
you
me
'cause
convince you that you're gay. I like that.
I like the "Are you sure?" It's like
That's real
pretty positive.
self-assurance.
Yeah, it's like I am not. But if you are,
I will hear you out.
yeah. I mean,
Please tell
is
me.
there a sales pitch that's going along with this? Because I mean, you've got my attention. So what can I do for you? You know, and like a couple of times it's been a mistake and then an apology. Like,
Mhm.
and I don't care. I'm very comfortable with who I am. I am a short-haired, deeper voiced, foul-mouthed, tattooed woman with a zest for life. So you want to talk to me, come talk to me. You don't, you don't. That's it.
I hope that you come across fewer people that try to convince you that you're gay
I
or
would
ask.
hope so too, but time has shown me that that's just not going to happen.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's all right though because if I wasn't comfortable in myself, it would floor me. And the first couple times it did, cause I didn't know what to do with it. But now it's just like, nope, sorry. I know some. I can call one for you. You really need one. I would also just like to throw it out there that I'm in no way homophobic or anything. If you're gay, cool. Trans, cool. Whatever, cool. You know, I
I assumed that because you refused to be told that you were gay, that you were homophobic.
someone thought that I was though. They were like, "Oh, so
So you
you
don't like gays then, huh?
that's what
So
I got."
you're just homophobic?
They were like, "Oh,
Because
you're not
you,
gay, so you
because
don't
I
like."
can't tell you you're gay. You're homophobic.
And
Huh?
I was like,
Huh?
I don't know how to respond to that. It was like, that's a new one. And I just kind of like stood there for a moment and I was like, well, I know I'm not homophobic. Very confident in that. Um, the only phobias I have really, I'm not a big fan of super tight spaces and I don't like spiders, but that's about it. The only intolerant I am is lactose. Even
That's
then,
still intolerant.
but you know
I
what?
will point that out.
I accept,
Lactose intolerance is still intolerance.
you know what though?
Era.
I accept dairy as it is and I support it. My body just can't. But
Okay.
I want it to live its best dairy life.
Fair enough.
I,
Well, the next time you should learn that scene from Ace Ventura with the tutu and the rewind, so that the next time you get like a minute into conversation with these people, just be like, yeah, I'm gonna back out of this conversation. And then just like
carrying a tutu
make your way
around.
to the back of the store or wherever you are.
Yeah, just start carrying a tutu around just for like those instances, just to like see how things go. Also, pro tip, in these scenarios, I seem to have forgotten that masks are not soundproof.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so explain the
Someone made a comment and offhand, I didn't even respond to it, but I was like, you motherfucking
Oh,
idiot. And
yeah,
they're like,
so you can.
what? And I was like,
Yeah.
what?
Who
Who
said
said
that?
that?
Well, your lips didn't move, so that's you can
And
claim anyone said it, so that's the
I
good
literally did
part.
one of these. I was like, someone got a potty mouth. Just kept going. I don't know. I find my way into some interesting situations, but they make for good stories, and they're always an opportunity for growth, which I always enjoy to, just kind of be like, yeah, you want to hear a weird story? I got a weird story for you, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So it's cool.
So speaking of growth, I don't know, this is an awkward transition, but like switching to personal matter for a second. You
Yeah,
were telling me that earlier this year you lost your brother,
I did.
and this was on top of COVID, and so an already difficult situation, and then that gets thrown on top of it. How did you deal with that? How did you I
Well, it
mean, was this
actually,
part of the introspection or part of the tattoos? How has that shaped you?
it does kind of tie in because my brother was gay.
Oh,
Um,
he was?
but
Okay.
he was, so that works out very well. Just a great segue. Well, I mean, I have a new tattoo for him on my thigh,
Mhm.
and I would show you, but if I'm not wearing shorts, I'm wearing pants, and it would be very awkward. But there's a lovely picture on my Instagram of it. My artist Caesar did an amazing job. And I lost my younger brother, who is not by blood. To clear that up for anyone, no one was really confused because everybody knows that.
Blood's just a formality that we
Yeah,
use to try to make it
yeah,
easier to determine who we're supposed to care about and who we're not supposed to care about, but
yeah. But
it's kind of
he was my younger brother. He was 25, and I lost him to an unfortunate overdose. And losing him, I made a joke out of it initially. I said, leave it to him to die during a pandemic because he was very well liked. He was a very loved kid.
Mhm.
So that going to his services is dangerous for everyone. Like, thank you, Derek. Um, but I took a good amount of time to kind of just sit there and be with my thoughts because out of the two of us, he was always the more emotional one. um I spent two birthdays in the ER with him because my birthday was just like his time to want to either OD or do something less than brilliant with alcohol.
Mhm.
And that was my thing, just picking up the pieces and moving on. That was what I did. So I felt kind of rudderless, and it was weird that he was gone, or that he is gone, because like I still it's there, it just still hasn't fully registered sometimes. But he when he passed, I got the phone call 9:35 in the morning, Sunday morning, November 1st. I got the call that he died a few hours earlier. And as I was getting off the phone from that phone call, my best friend Emma called me, and she it was kind of funny. She had a little figurine dancing on FaceTime,
Mhm.
and I was like, not the time. And we started talking. I ran through like all the emotions. I was like, this can't be right. They get information wrong all the time. This isn't happening. Oh my God, this happened. Well, wait, now what do I do? What if I do this to get him back? He's gone. I'm okay with it. And then I slowed down and kind of
Stages of grief, right? Basically,
I
that's
ran through all of them in about 5 minutes.
mhm.
But then that passed, and I kind of knew it was coming because of decisions that he had been making and stuff. But I was really hopeful for him that he was going to be all right. And when I got the call, I thought I was going to throw up and pass out, and all the stuff that you hear, I was floored. And then I think what really like drove it home for me was I was sitting there thinking about it, and I wanted to call him and tell him that he died, which does not make a whole lot of sense. But I think once he died, and I was getting a little more information about what had happened, I was struck with two things. Number one, I was thinking to myself how all of this affects me. I was like, well, now what do I do? What do I? And I was thinking to myself, this isn't about me. He's gone now. This isn't about me. This isn't how I move on. But then I came to realize that it was. And that's part of introspection. Kind of being okay with the fact that this was a very alien thing. I mean, I've had people in my life pass away, but obviously not a sibling. And it was just so weird to kind of break the news to other family members and friends. And because initially I was on the phone with Emma, and my mom comes around the corner, and I just looked up at her, and she was like, what's going on? Because my face was completely pale. And I said, Mom, Derek died. And both my parents, were very sad and very sorry for me, because, my whole thing was picking up the pieces and fixing it. And I couldn't pick up the pieces and fix it. Sorry, it's been a long day. I
know I bring this up late in the podcast too.
Oh no, it's totally fine. I couldn't pick up the pieces of this and fix it. And that's what was the worst for me, was that I couldn't fix it, because I'd always been able to. I'd always been able to do something to make it better, and I couldn't. And I felt at a loss for what to do, because there was nothing I could do. I can't bring him back. So I'm learning now kind of how to take what they call the savior complex and apply it to something else. Not that I think I'm some type of savior, but that it's just kind of the role that I took with him, was that, like, you got a problem, I'll fix it, because that's my role in this relationship, is I fix the tremendous amount of things you seem to get yourself into.
Yeah.
Which was a lot. There were times where I was like, just how? Like, slow walk me through how we got here. But, after he was laid to rest and stuff, there was some things that went on, and I couldn't be at the funeral. And I didn't know where his grave was. And I was driving around this cemetery, and I used to call him Deeds. And I was like, Deeds, I need some type of sign here, dude. I need you to help me. I cannot find you. Like, I'm starting to look like a crazy person driving around a cemetery. Please help me find you. I'm getting towards the end. And this huge gust of wind blows a bunch of leaves into the side of my car. And I look over, and there's fresh graves. And so I get out and I go look, and there he is. And I was like, thank you. So I parked, and I went, and I just like sat down, and I just started talking to him. And I made myself laugh, which screams sanity, me giggling by myself in a graveyard. Mm-hmm. But I was talking to him, and I was just like, it's the first time I've gotten a word in edgewise in years. But, I was just sitting there with him and thinking about how long I tried to keep him out of this box that he's in now.
Mhm.
and how hard I worked to keep him here. And I was like, this isn't about me anymore. And then I was like, I failed, which was not true, as I've been told, but there's your survivor's guilt,
Mm.
tying it back into the beginning. But I guess it's still kind of a blur, but there was a time that he overdosed and he was Narcan back, and he was really pissed about it because he said everything was quiet and peaceful and calm and he didn't want to be back.
That's a tough thing to hear
Yeah.
for somebody to say that.
Yeah.
You don't know what to say to that when somebody.
It was like, well, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Uh, but you know, a great line from Vonnegut is everything was beautiful and nothing hurt, from Slaughterhouse-Five, I believe, because he and I used to share books back and forth.
Mhm.
And so what I started thinking to myself was, you know, from what he had told me then, I hope that for him, in those final moments, whatever did happen in that hotel room where he died, everything was beautiful and nothing hurt because he suffered. He suffered with substance abuse disorder, disease, whatever it's called, for about a decade before he died. And, you know, he had peaks and valleys. And I think people are quick to vilify someone that passes away from addiction. And I think for some people, it's just easier to be like, oh, well, they chose it.
Mhm.
And
I think they don't want to see themselves in it, like they
yeah,
don't want to see themselves in that person.
yeah. And I had said to him before, I was like, you know, I get it. We were sitting in a rehab facility once when we were talking, and I said, I get, you know, that you're sick. I get that. I was like, but the first time, no one made you. Yes, someone did. No, they didn't. I know that they didn't because the story has changed so many times that I know that they didn't. Um, but you know, that like why of you pick it up always got me, but I never got that answer. But what it came down to for me was trying to find the good memories with him because I could point to a million times that I had to save his ass from something. But I was having a hard time with that. And then I started thinking about like the good stuff that we got to do, like snowboarding or, you know, going for random walks or sitting on the roof in the middle of the night looking at the stars talking about the future. And so I made myself and him a promise at the grave that I would try to fulfill some of the things that I knew he wanted to do and didn't get a chance to do. Like he wanted to get his poetry published. Some of it's awful, but some of it is good. And I will try to do that for him. Some of it, it's like, no, because my name will be like attached to that somehow, like submitted by for, and I'm just,
I'll get it out there, but I won't be
yeah,
affiliated with it.
I'll pick and choose what needs to go, you know. And one of his favorite songs was Scar Tissue by Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Mhm.
And if you've seen my posts on uh, social media, I was going to say Facetagram because that's a thing apparently.
They do own it.
They do. The tattoo that I got is a moon and the Roman numerals of the year he was born, the year he died. Black backdrop, his name, Derek James, and then if I have to crawl underneath because the lyric that goes, I'll make it to the moon if I have to crawl, was one of his favorite things, like his favorite thing to play on the guitar.
Hmm.
And I genuinely hope that whatever the moon is for him, that he made it because he was suffering here. He made all of our lives a little bit more difficult than they had to be. But I hope he made it to the moon. And I hope that, you know, wherever he's at, there's good music and good food and it's nice out and he's reunited with all the other people that he lost from overdoses and that while I'm here, I will do what I can to honor his memory and to to just keep going, because he was always proud when I did something good. Um, and like, I've gone to his grave a few times. I talked with him, just hung out, been like, yeah, just chilling with my brother. That mound of dirt, it's him. Um, you know, all the things that I wish I had said to him when he was here, I've said now. Like, you, you dumb motherfucker has come out of my mouth
Mm.
there, and then I've been like, sorry, that's on me, my bad. But I think the other thing that I've really taken from losing him is, you can think about the fragility of life and stuff, and that's there, but I never realized, like, he drove me nuts. And there were times that I was like, I don't want to deal with you right now because you're doing something stupid that I'm gonna have to fix. And my birthday was his favorite time to do something dumb. And I mean, like, they gave me cake in the ER once when I was sitting there with him waiting for him to sober up. It was decent cake. The nurses liked me; they were cool. But I found myself this past birthday, like, wishing I was sitting in the ER with him instead of knowing that he's 6 feet under. But I started thinking, and one thing that I've taken solace in is that everybody, or not everybody, but people that have reached out since he passed away said, oh, you were a good sister to him. He was lucky to have you. Like, you taught him good stuff. I'm like, no. But I realized that he taught me a lot more than I gave him credit for. And I wish I could have said that to him when he was here, because he taught me how to be tough when I thought I didn't have anything else to give. He taught me how to be strong when I was at my weakest points, because I had to be for both of us. I had to be tough when I had to go find him somewhere. I had to be strong when I had to say, he needs to go to rehab, around Christmas. I had to grow up in different ways to take care of him, because I felt like that was my job. And I never really got to thank him for that, because you don't know when you're going to talk to someone for the last time. And our last conversation, well, he called my car the Jew Mobile. And I was like, that car's been your personal ambulance like a few times there, buddy. And I think we talked like on the phone a couple more times than that. But our last text conversation, that's the last text I sent to him, was that's been your personal ambulance. But, I wish I could have thanked him for what I learned about myself, helping him get through his shit, because I learned that I was a lot stronger than I thought I was when I had to be, because someone had to be, and it wasn't going to be him. And in that, I became, in part, who I am today. It's why I became an EMT. It's why, I'm quick to go, yeah, that person is struggling with addiction but isn't a junkie. It's simple things like that, like giving dignity to some people that might otherwise not be getting it. And I'm not some saint, because my brother passed away from an addiction, and I'm trying to figure out this new world without him. But I like to think that, yeah, I got to learn a fair amount from him, and hopefully he's finally at peace.
I think we're all echoes of our ancestors, and eventually ripples into the people around us and whatever comes after us. So your realizations you becoming an EMT, all those things, that's Derek. That is what Derek is now, you know? Like
Yeah.
all the things that they're non-tangible, non-physical things are in you and your family members, and it's sort of like the impacts. uh
Yeah.
yeah. By the way, it's I'm amazed at your reflection. You know, like you have a lot of reflection that you've undergone, so
Oh, thank you.
that's it's impressive. Obviously I'm glad that you really understand the urge to feel some sense of guilt or responsibility, but it's like you you can't you can't live somebody else's life for them, and I think that's probably what you ultimately realized. And like if you could live
Heard
somebody
that
else's,
one a lot too.
would you say?
I've heard that one a lot too.
Yeah, and you know it might be a platitude at this point, but it's like um if you could live somebody's life for them, then they wouldn't be them. You know, if Derek wasn't Derek, then you wouldn't love him for who he is, right? So
If Derek wasn't Derek, Sarah wouldn't be Sarah.
yeah,
I'd
if
be some different, maybe boring version of myself
mhm.
that didn't know that hospitals do have some good cake, but like in the cafeteria, it's like
It's good. So
it's
this can be part of his memorial too, is his non-physical memorial, is be like existing in cyberspace also for eternity, or
yeah.
until
I mean
somebody purges this podcast.
that and like I want to. The only thing I could think of in the days after he passed away was I was so pissed. I was so pissed that he was gone. But then
Mhm.
I was like, if I can just come up with like one good memory, I'll feel better. And then as I started coming up with memories, unfortunately, in the last years of his life, my memories with him aren't that great because it was bailing him out of something or dealing with something that had happened or trying to help him make sense of something. Um, but there are good memories intertwined in there.
Mhm.
And those are the ones that, if 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 someone was like, what was your brother like? I'd be like, well, he was sick, but he also was funny and he had a good heart
Mhm.
and he would give you the shirt off his back. Watched him do it once, watched him give a homeless guy his jacket in a subway station. And I was like, bud, that's really sweet. But that guy has like 15 coats. It is the middle of winter.
Why
And that
you do? Why you do?
and that was all you had. And now I look like an ass because I've got like a sweatshirt and a jacket on.
Mhm.
We're in Copley Square.
Fighting the homeless guy for the coat that Derek gave him.
Yeah, no, and I ended up being like, I think I took off my jacket and I was like, just here, just wear my jacket. Don't give it to anyone. All
Yeah.
right. This is what I've got. Like, and just stuff like that. Like Derek was that kind of person, but
Mhm.
but he was sick. And that's how I look at it, that he was sick and unfortunately the illness won, as too often it does.
Hmm.
But I hope that, let the record show that he wasn't just a drug addict. He was a brother, he was a son, he was a nephew, he was a friend, he was a colossal pain in the ass, but he was my brother.
Mhm.
And even at his worst, I was proud to call him my brother.
It's all wrapped up. It's all tied together.
It's all
Um,
tied together.
I recently have been watching the HBO show from like 10 years ago, The Wire,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of addicts in the show. And you know, like one of the things I really like about the show is whoever it's portraying, it portrays them very empathetically and as, you know, full people. So you know, I hope that people can view shows like that in other sources, and see that addicts and other people, you know, whether it's homeless people or whatnot, like I hope that people can, whatever somebody is going through, whatever stigma exists around them, I'm hoping that people can see other people as full people. Is there anything that you want to say about like any like resources that you want to recommend, or books or ideas or anything about addiction itself? Or I'm not
Yeah,
trying to
no, definitely.
pull information out of you, but if you had anything.
Definitely. You know, I mean, I'd be remiss not to just mention it because my brother was gay and I think struggled with that a little bit, but obviously was well accepted. And I mean, we all figured it out before he did. But
Mhm.
obviously, the Trevor Project. If you need resources there, that's a phenomenal asset for family members of people that are struggling with addiction. There's Al-Anon that helps you kind of learn to live with that.
Wait, the Trevor Project, is that related to LGBT and
Yeah,
being gay, or is that okay? Gotcha.
the Trevor Project is well, it's a great many things, but it is for the LGBTQ plus community.
Okay.
Resources, help, you name it, it's there. Um, so that's great. There's also the National Alliance of Mental Illness. They do cover substance abuse. Um, and, if in general, if you're struggling, that doesn't make you a bad person. Reach out. Somebody is there and somebody's listening. And that's the most important thing. And also, if you are experiencing an overdose and someone calls help for you, EMTs are not going to arrest you. They're going to help you.
Mm.
That is so important.
Amnesty policy, basically, right? Like a
Essentially,
medical amnesty, or is that what it's
yeah.
called? Okay.
I don't, I should know and
Okay.
don't off the top of my head, but um,
Same thing with like Good Samaritan law, right?
yeah,
Like if you try to help someone who's overdosing and you like botch it somehow, like you can't be charged. I'm not saying that there's
exactly.
many ways to botch it, but
Yeah. Or
same
like
kind of thing.
if you're giving them Narcan and they end up passing anyway because it only reverses the effects for about a half an hour.
Mhm.
Um, Also, everybody can carry Narcan. You can get it at your local uh, drugstore, wherever it is you so choose to go. Um, See, anyone can have it. It is incredibly easy.
Got reflection on that.
Yeah, it's incredibly easy to administer. And, I don't have mine down here, but I have it in my car. I have it in my backpack, you know, on the off chance that somebody's going to need it. And you know what? If you're struggling, there's no shame in that. Ask for help, reach out. For the one person that's going to judge you, 50 are going to accept you.
Hmm.
I'm not an addict. I've never been one. I mean, there could be an argument made for the amount of caffeine I consume in a day, but that's its own issue, and I will address it at a later time. Because I really do, and I'm still tired. Should talk to a doctor about that. But anyway,
High tolerance.
maybe. But Monster. Like I can drink a Monster and take a nap, but that's its own problem. Um, but you know, I have never been an active addict, but at the same time, if you were to come to me and say like, this is what I'm going through, I will help you find the resources to figure out what you need. And I'm not like, just one person in a sea of a bunch of people that'll walk away from you. If you walk into an emergency room, I don't know how it is with COVID, but in general, if you walk into an emergency room and you're having a hard time, they will help you. People in healthcare are there to help. For the most part, cops are there to help. That is something I'm going to throw an asterisk on, and we will talk about that some other time. But as far as that goes, there are so many resources, there are so many people, and for anybody fighting an addiction or dealing with the reality that you love someone that has an addiction, you're not alone, the addict or the family member. or the person that loves them. There is no separation. And it's been really tough with COVID and everything. But there are support groups online. There are 24-hour numbers. There are text message therapists, because I keep hearing the ads for that, and I'm kind of wondering what Google thinks I'm going through. But people are there. People want to help. Please get help, whether you're the addict or the person that loves one. And just know that today might suck, tomorrow might be worse, and you could have a week that's shit, but it's going to get better. And you can heal. And if you have lost someone to drugs, as much as I have a hard time taking this piece of advice that is thrown at me so much, it is not your fault. I don't fully believe it in my circumstance, but it really isn't.
Classic Robin Williams from Good Will Hunting.
For real. But ultimately, everyone it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you kind of choose your own adventure that becomes your destiny, especially when you're playing Russian roulette with your life.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, if you did everything you could do and you know in your heart that you did, you will heal. And I'm coming from a very fresh, he died in November. It's January now. Sometimes it feels like forever ago, and sometimes it feels like yesterday. But reach out and know that things are going to get better, and that for every one bad day, I promise you down the road, those bad days will become a memory. And there will be weeks and weeks and weeks where it's just good. Promise. And also, don't do drugs.
Okay.
I mean, weed's one thing. It's medicinal and everything, but if you're injecting something and it's not insulin, maybe just rethink it.
We'll do another episode on the war on drugs sometime, and we can tie that in with police. But that was all beautiful. Thank you for sharing all those resources. Thank you for coming on again. It's been too long.
I know. Thank you again for having me and giving me a platform to talk about my brother. I've put a few things on social media, but I can talk at length about him, and I appreciate it.
Anytime, Sarah. Anytime. Great to hear your voice again. You're invited back anytime. We should have a follow-up episode on narcissism also, because that's like the most popular episode, I think.
Oh, really?
A lot of people found it might be because you were sharing it with some of your professors and whatnot, but yeah, people really seem to connect to the idea of narcissism too. So
I mean, we're coming up on a year since that episode, and I think maybe we'll be back in the studio to do that.
That would be nice. That'd be nice. Coming up on a year, and narcissism hasn't seemed to have gone anywhere, I'm noticing.
No, it's alive and well.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so. Although I will say this, the narcissist that I dated, and a big fuck you, sir, to wherever you are, when things were separating, and there's a lot of stuff that was going on behind the scenes, but when that was separating, a good friend of mine said, today feels like the worst day of your life. A year from now, it's going to feel completely different. And in 2 years, it's just going to be a memory, like a tiny memory. I'm coming up on 2 years to that day.
And it doesn't feel like a tiny memory.
Oh, it does.
Oh, it does? Okay, that's good.
That day of things that were going down, I remember it, but not as vividly, and it doesn't feel as bad. The memories of the shit that happened don't make me want to curl into a ball anymore and hide. Hey. That makes me go, I survived this, and I'm gonna be all right, and I can help other people.
You survived a few things, and so has your family. I guess it runs in your veins, or it runs through
I
your
guess it's either dumb
through your
luck or we
heritage.
don't quit. I don't know. But I you just keep going.
Just keep going.
You do.
All right. Well, on that note, have a great night, Sarah.
You too. And it was, as you said, it was lovely to catch up and talk. And we will definitely not put such a big gap in the next time we chat.
Agreed. We'll
And
avoid that.
once COVID finally calms down, can we all just wear a mask? Please. We
Good night,
have like
Sarah.
a list of places to go to.
Oh, yeah, we'll get there. We'll get
Yeah,
there.
they're all making it difficult. So if we can all just put on a mask and wash our hands, you and I can go places.
It'll happen.
Yeah,
Good night, Sarah.
Good night, Pat.